Right, I've carried on with my sorting of bows, and what we've got this side is ones that have strings, although that one hasn't. I don't know what it's doing there. And the other side over here I've got ones that haven't got strings, including those 4 bows that I put up on the tiller in the last video. Now, the reason some haven't got strings is because I don't like making strings, and I tend to borrow a string off one to try on the next one. But there's a few interesting ones here. So that's just a U stick bow. I think that was my waggly stick that was with a decent batch of U that I got, and it had a huge bend in it, and I did an experimental thing where to get the sideways bend I created a deliberate weak point by cutting out a big section, then did a heat bend there, then glued in a piece. Shoots perfectly nicely, and you get that lovely coffee and cream heartwood and sapwood look, where the sapwood wraps around the belly. There's a Frankenstein style bow, 2 half bows put together with a socket, which I should be able to separate. There we go. So obviously it wasn't made like that originally. Top limb broke, so I just grafted on a primitive. So it's a primitive top limb and an English longbow bamboo renew lower limb. Bit of novelty. Got the good old monkey bow. That's a bit of elder with levers spliced on because I overdrew it and snapped it. But kids like that if I do a have a go day. Hazel radical recurve with a bit of a paint job. That shoots quite nicely. I've taken that field shooting a few times. Here's the Ackles and Pollock one, which, as I said, I don't shoot because it's been suggested that they become dangerous because the pipes rust internally. But this is socketed as well, so it comes apart. The sight arrangement's quite nice, but I don't actually use sights on anything. That's how the socket works. Again, a bit of a novelty. I pretty much despise sights on bows, but there you go. This is effectively like a longbow, but I think it's based on a Cherokee style. It's a piece of hop hornbeam that came from the States. That's me long English longbow. I'll measure that and put a comment up on the video saying how long it is. They're the flight bows. Back to this lot. See, this is another U stick bow, and that's from the U in my back garden. There's a new guy cropped up on YouTube doing some nice bow making videos, but he's a relative beginner, and it surprised me to find he's in England. He was saying that U's rare. Well, no, sorry, U isn't rare. Good U is fairly rare, but if you make it your business to find every U tree within a 2-mile radius, you'll probably find at least one good limb. That's my nice U one with a hole in it. Well, it's English U again. And a variety of other stuff. This is the first U bow I ever made. It took me ages to find a decent piece of U. That's the first yew bow I ever made. Took a lot of trouble to find my first decent bit of yew, but once you get the hang of looking for it and putting the effort in, you can find it. In fact, I tell you what, we'll go on a yew hunt. Let's see if we can find any yew trees. Oh look, there's one in my back garden. And if you wanted to make a bow, you can see that limb. That limb's wide enough. That limb's wide enough. And there's enough straight length in that one to make a bow. And in that one. And that's where I sawed off that limb that made one of those stick bows. You don't have to dismiss what's called landscape yew, or stuff that's been planted by the roadside by the council. That's another nice little elder bow, done in the style of a Native American one with some duck feathers on it, and you can see the hollow centre where the pith ran. On a tiny little Osage bow. Probably only 36 inches long, but that will still spit out an arrow. That would get you lunch if you needed it. Talking of bowstrings, down here in my drawer, I've got a lot of spare ones in envelopes. So what I need to do is sort out strings for these flight bows that I wanted to test and make me brush rest for that one and go and give them a whirl. I've also got a variety of strings hanging up here, you know, chilling strings, strings off bows that are broken and what have you, so I have to check through, try and marry some strings up to some bows. The other thing I also want to do is see if my chronometer will work off my new lighting, which is all LED. And the thing with that lighting is there's so much smoothing in there, that's so much capacitance, because they work off DC, that when you turn it off they take quite a time to dim. So hopefully they won't flicker too much, and that will mean that the chrono will work, because otherwise I have to rig up a lamp hanging down there with some old filament bulbs in it. Of course, none of the decent strings I've found a length that I need, so I've made up another card and I can stick them in me drawer of strings. I'm not quite sure how I end up with so many strings that don't fit bows, but there you go. There's probably an equivalent drawer full of odd socks somewhere. Managed to match up a couple of strings to bows, well 3 actually. My old first ever yew bow that I made originally had self knocks, so I've got a string back on that, which is sort of thing I could take roving. The radical recurve hazel, which again is a nice one to string and demonstrate, but it's an absolute pig to string with that recurve. And also the bonkers yew stick bow, which actually draws up into a remarkably nice full arc of a circle. But there's a couple of bits I noticed that I didn't mention. First, that block let in to allow me to put in some sideways bend, and even then the tip didn't line up properly, so I did a sort of overlay on the side of the limb, and then on top of that I did the usual sort of tip overlay. But it just goes to show what you can do. You know, you can take the mickey a bit. Yeah, it's just a novelty bow to show what you can do. you know, it's a wonky stick. Let's see what we can do with it. So anyway, that's got 3 strung, which is an achievement, and it's tidied my strings up a bit. I've also sawn up for firewood the rowan bow, because I strung it, had it on the tiller, one limb was weak, it had chrysals. Also the white walnut that I got from my brother's place. We expected it to be a lovely dark walnut colour, but it was white all the way through. You can see them, they're not there, the 2 bows aren't there. And that had gone out of tiller and it had been heat treated before, and it was just no good. So no point keeping rubbish. So that sorted out my stash a little bit, sorted out my strings. Still got to make strings for the flight bows before I can try them, but it's kept me out of mischief for a bit.